This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Investing 365. Today, I got Charlie Harrison from Greenville, South Carolina. He is a co-owner in a wholesaling business, and he's also a full-time real estate agent. What's going on, Charlie? Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. Doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm excited to get talking because this wholesaling business and getting into this type of this part of the investing side is what a lot of people are interested in nowadays. So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from, how you got started in real estate, and then we'll move into the wholesaling side in a minute.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me, man. Glad we got connected through the mastermind. Like you said, I'm Charlie Harrison. I've been in real estate almost 3 years, coming up at the end of this November. Got started as a full-time buyer's agent with a pretty big team with Keller Williams, and ended up going to another team within the next 6 months. That was just a little bit of a better fit for me. As an inside sales agent. So I actually started as a full-time agent and then went into more of a salaried role, cold calling leads, setting appointments for the other agents on our team. We were fairly new. Like you said, we've just started our own brokerage about 3 or 4 months ago. So it's been a pretty crazy journey within the last 2 or 3 years with real estate. And just in the last 6 months, right before we started the brokerage, like you said, my broker and I are now 50-50 partners with our investing business, just wholesaling. So, yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
Cool. Yeah, right on. So you born and raised in Greenville area?
Yeah, born and raised in Greenville. Went to a small private Christian school, maybe 30 minutes away. In Anderson, South Carolina. Probably people would know it's close to Clemson.
Yeah.
So I'm sure most people know Clemson University with the football program. But yeah, went there for 4 years, got a communications and PR degree. Did a mixture of just about every kind of job you can think of, from inside sales, outside sales. Worked at the YMCA, had a little nonprofit thing going on there for a few years. And right before I actually got into real estate, I was working with a trucking logistics company as an operations manager.
Okay.
So you name it, I've done it.
All kinds of different stuff going on.
Yeah, all over the place.
So how did you decide to get started in real estate? Did you have family in the business, or you just thought, hey, this looks cool and I'm interested in it, so we'll take the dive?
Yeah, I was actually trying to think about that. I think the biggest thing that got me into real estate initially, and it's actually changed since I've been in it. So initially it was for the money. I'll be selfish, it was for the money. I knew some people who were agents at the time. They were doing well. It's right when the boom started picking back up. And also just flexibility with time. At the time I was engaged a few months before my wife and I got married. Wanted more flexibility with weekends, just more time with her and with family and friends, and just the opportunity to make more money. And finally, I think it was just an opportunity to get out of a cube. Most of my career with inside, outside sales and other stuff, I was just sitting in a cube. I'm naturally very ADD, so I can't sit for more than 2 minutes. So if I take my laptop and start moving around the place, it's because I can't sit still. So I felt like it would just have been a good fit for me. It actually took a few years to really get my business going.
Right.
A lot of grinding, a lot of long hours just to get the retail side of things going. But yeah, it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's definitely a scary thing. Like a lot of people get into real estate. It seems like there's thousands of agents out there. And I think the reason is because it's kind of a low barrier of entry, you know what I mean? You just pay $1,500 or whatever, take the test, and then any brokers will let you get on. But really, if you want to be successful, it's going to take some time, right? 6 months or a year to really get your deals coming and start, closing some houses with your sphere of influence or whoever you have, right?
It is. I think if So I remember recently the NAR, National Association of Realtors, I think the statistic is within the first 2 years of being a full-time agent, something crazy like 80 or 90% of agents get out.
Right.
And I believe it because it's a lot of people that get in. Most of them I've seen don't come from 100% commission job or mentality. That was me. The reason I actually got started is because I got laid off from that trucking logistics company, mainly because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. 3 months into marriage, my wife had just gotten a full-time job, and I'm like, I think I want to do real estate. I've always thought about doing it. I'm like, we're young, don't have too many responsibilities. I'm just going to do it. She supported me 100%. You've got a great personality. I think you can do it. And actually, a quick story there. I was an agent. I think I said full-time agent with Keller Williams. I did it maybe 3 months, had 1 or 2 deals, and out of nowhere, my wife got laid off from her job. And so I got laid off, got started in real estate, maybe 3 months, 100% commission. She was a salary position. She got laid off. And so we're not even 6 months into marriage. And I'm not making any money as an agent. She's now not making any money. And she came home in tears. She's like, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I don't have anything in the pipeline. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. So I actually had to leave. And I ended up getting in with a buddy of mine in his construction company for like 2 or 3 months. Just hard physical labor, hot heat, out there 10, 12 hours just doing commercial framing for a company. So, yeah, it was not fun, not ideal, but at the time I had to do what I had to do. So, yeah, not a very conventional way to get started in real estate.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people talk about that and how they go in thinking it's not nearly as much work as it is. And people that aren't in real estate, they look at agents and like, man, oh, you're going to sell my $500,000 house and get a $25,000 commission, or whatever it is, but it's because it takes a long time to get going, and there's way more work involved than people tend to realize. So,
yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of ups and downs, and there's been months where we've literally had to live on credit cards just to get by because I wasn't making enough. But I've stuck it out much more consistent now, and you've got 100% commit to it, knowing it's going to take a year or two, and you're probably not going to make much to start out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good. Well, we'll dive in a second, but I'm sure everybody can tell that, we're not diving right into the first rental deal or something because this is a little bit different show. We're not going to talk about long-term rentals, but I wanted to focus more on Charlie's wholesaling company and investing business that he started with his brokers. So if for those of you who don't know, Charlie, can you explain what wholesaling is?
Yeah, so just as simple as I can explain it, wholesaling real estate is where you get a contract directly with the seller, and in that contract, the language should say that you have the right to assign it or to market that specific contract to someone else, to like an end buyer. So what we do, you're kind of like a middleman between the seller who needs to sell their home and the actual buyer who's going to financially purchase the property. And as a wholesaler, you're in the middle. You get the seller under contract for one price, and you assign it for 5, 10, 15, 20,000, whatever it ends up being, to another end buyer, and they end up purchasing it, and you get the fee in between. It's not very as conventional as traditional real estate. It even took me a while to just understand the concept. But yeah, it's get the seller under contract for $100,000, and then you assign it to an end buyer for maybe 110, 115. The seller's able to sell their house really quickly. It's usually with a distressed seller, maybe going through a divorce, may have been a rental that wasn't taken well care of. There's any kind of number of reasons you can think of that they need to sell quickly, and they're willing to sell for usually 70%, even 60% of what it could be on the retail market.
Right.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. So what we'll do is let's dive into, well, how long ago did you and your partner start this wholesaling investing company?
Yeah, so we started back in April. Officially is when we first started. We signed up with, if you know it, real estate investing at all, Brent Daniels with Wholesaling Inc. He has the TTP program taught to people. It was like $3,000 or $4,000. We signed up with him, and it's basically a crash course of how to get started, modules from each week, what you do. So we did that just because we knew it was going to take a lot of time, and we were willing to invest that money up front to save probably up to a year's worth of learning. And within that time, we cold called a person in our area. I was talking to him. He said, well, I don't want to sell this property, but I actually have several other properties I may consider selling. And at the time, the property where he was selling, I knew a buyer in that area who was a newer investor. They were flipping maybe 2-3 properties at the time. And so I just called him. I said, hey, Josh, I got this guy in Pickens. He might want to sell his rental property. No one's living there. Here's the basic details. What do you think? He's like, I think we've got something. So he and I actually met out there with the seller. I explained the situation. I said, he's probably going to purchase it. I'm working with him. Are you okay with that? And one thing we always try to do with the wholesaling piece, because I'm sure a lot of wholesalers get a bad reputation because they don't disclose up front what their position is with the seller. So we always try to be very transparent. We're most likely not going to actually purchase it. We're going to partner or actually find the end buyer. They're going to pay our fee, but you're still going to get the price you need and sell very quickly. So we went and took a look at the property.
Real quick, how long after you guys decided, so you guys decided to start the company, you took this course to kind of get the ins and outs and cut time off the startup process so you can learn the systems. And then, so how long after you guys got done with that course did this first deal come along?
Probably a month and a half, 2 months of just calling thousands of people before we actually got this one person that says, hey, yeah, I'd be willing to sell for X amount of dollars. And I can actually go into that deal more as we go because it just got listed. They just flipped it last week.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one question a lot of people have that they want to start wholesaling. They don't know anything about it, is how do you go and find these properties that you're buying for 75 cents or 60 cents or whatever on the dollar? What was your system for finding the properties?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, it started out a little different because since we are realtors, we have access to what's called CRS tax. We can actually go in there and do a search for people who are absentee owners, owner-occupieds that last sold their property 10 years ago in certain areas. So we actually started with an absentee list. That tends to be the number one list most new wholesalers or even established wholesalers do. And so an absentee owner is typically, they own the property, but they don't live there. Most likely they use it as a rental. And one thing I've learned is if they own one rental, they probably own multiple. And if one rental is not in great shape or is vacant or has been sitting there vacant for a while, they probably have other similar properties that they might be willing to sell. And that was the case with this guy.
Okay, cool. So you guys looked through your tax program on the realtor side. You look for everybody that's an absentee owner, and then you just started calling everybody, or did you mail them, or how did you get in contact with them?
Yeah, so we called them, and I can kind of go into it a little bit real quickly.
Yeah,
so there is a system called batch skip tracing. If you go on Google and type in batch skip tracing, it allows you to export an Excel spreadsheet. So you have the first name, the last name, the address, city, state, and zip of a specific homeowner and that specific property. And you get a list of absentee owners, maybe 1,000. And I can kind of go in towards the end of the show. I've got a few references for people who can find websites and pay to actually find those lists. So if you're not a realtor, you can still get them.
Yeah.
But so we send it off to batch skip tracing, and I think it's maybe 10 or 15 cents per contact, and it kicks back up to 10 phone numbers associated with that property. So when I say I've talked to everybody associated with this homeowner, I've talked to husbands, wives, ex-husbands, ex-wives, cousins, neighbors. One lady accidentally called her work, and the receptionist answered, and she was not happy about that. But yeah, I've talked to everybody you can imagine. And the one thing you have to know going in is you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of upset people. I've been cussed at, threatened with lawsuits and stuff. And just, you can't let that discourage you. You've got to know that every call that you make that's a no is going to eventually get you to a yes, and that one person you can't help.
Yeah. I think they were just talking about that on Bigger Pockets on this last episode, is like, real estate is definitely a no game. You know what I mean? Like, you just get told no all the time. It's kind of like asking a girl out to prom. They were saying, you just got to kind of get over it and just keep asking, because eventually it's going to say yes. Somebody's going to say yes.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate that before we even started this, and one of the reasons we wanted to go with the TTP program, to talk to people, is I started out early on after I became an agent as an inside sales agent. So I was cranking out phone calls to Zillow leads, realtor leads, all kind of leads in our database, and generated those appointments for the agents at the time before I became one with the team and brokerage I'm with now. And so I got used to having those conversations with buyers and sellers, and knowing what to talk about, and knowing how to steer the direction, the conversation, and figure out, okay, is this a motivated buyer? Is this a motivated seller? I learned how to set appointments, not just that week, but 3 months away, 6 months away, a year away. And a lot of the people that I've gotten past business with on the retail side and the investing, every one of our investing deals we've done, I talked to at least 3 or 4 times before we finally met and got a deal. So that was kind of going off on a tangent, but yeah, the biggest thing is just following up, because you don't know when they're ready to do something, or even if they end up going with someone else. Perfect example, I literally got a text from a guy maybe an hour ago. It was a lead from a flipper I work with, and maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And the day I talked to him, he said, all right, let's meet tomorrow, 5 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, perfect. He texts me the next morning, goes, hey, someone else already beat you to it. I'm like, all right, well, it happens. Speed to the lead, but I still made a note to follow up once a week, just because I've learned in real estate deals fall through all the time. I followed up with him this past Monday. He was supposed to close this week. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll follow up maybe one more time next week and let it go. He literally texted me an hour ago, says, hey, I don't know what happened with the buyer, but they've gone MIA. I still need to sell. Can you meet? Yep. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Perfect. Yeah. No.
So
that's awesome. So when you're calling all these, you have this list of numbers and you're calling all these people, you must have, obviously, since you're a realtor, you have some sort of CRM that you're using, or customer management software. What do you guys like to use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's kind of twofold. On our retail side, we use what's called Follow Up Boss for all of our leads. Like Realtor, Zillow, they all get imported in there automatically. But for the investor side, we use something that's called Mojo. Very popular. It's about $150 a month for the service that we use. But all 5,000-6,000 leads we've generated so far are in there. And I have them categorized by no, maybe, yes, a listing, under contract, sold. Like, I have all of these categories based on each person I've talked to, whether they fit into one of these. A lot of the maybes I've set follow-up reminders to, but it's incredible. And what's nice about it, it has what's called a triple dial feature.
Yeah.
And I'm able to just crank out hundreds of calls a day, at least 1,000 a week. So I'm able to get to those leads quicker versus someone who may just be hopping on their cell phone and calling. And it allows me to stay in touch with those people. So the people I know that are going to do something in the next 3 months, I've got a weekly reminder every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Friday, and I've got notes in there as well. There's a notes feature. So when I'm calling them, because I probably don't remember what I was talking about, I'll say, oh, hey, last we spoke, you were trying to clean out the house. How's that going? Are you ready for me to meet with you? So there's some really great features, but it's called Mojo, M-O-J-O.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've used Mojo before for dialing and calling people, but I've never heard of it, or I just didn't know that you could use it as like an actual CRM. I've used Boomtown, and then Podio is what my partner and I will be using for our investing business. So,
Nice.
Okay, cool. So you started calling all these numbers that you got from the absentee owners. You were going through them and everything, and you finally got a hold of somebody that had a rental, or you called them about one, but you said that they brought up that they have another one that they were interested in selling. Is that how it went?
Yeah. So, and I know these are counties you don't know about. So just for quick reference, the house I called, it was maybe 123 May Street in Greer. But he said, hey, I don't want to sell that one. I like my other ones, but I do have this one vacant one as of recent in Pickens, which is a little bit kind of in the outskirts of town, kind of closer to the mountains. I'm like, well, hey, my buddy Josh, who I gotten to know recently, he's flipping easily in Pickens. And so I gave him a call and said, hey, man, here are the details of the house. It's in this little mill village. He's like, dude, let's go see it. And so we met Roscoe, the seller, out there and walked the property. And he needed to be at maybe 70,000. And we were around 60 or 65 at the time based on what it needed to retail for a certain amount after rehab and everything. And I'm like, we're close. We just can't make it work. And so he ended up, I followed up with him maybe 2 or 3 days later. And of course, someone else had gotten a hold of him, and they had agreed to maybe, I think, like 72,000. I'm like, crap. Okay, well, on to the next one. But again, just like that guy I was just talking about, I made a note to follow up with Roscoe once a week, just because I've learned, and real estate deals fall through all the time. And it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I gave him a call and said, hey, Roscoe, it's Charlie. We met a few weeks ago, Josh, at the property. I know you're under contract with somebody. I just wanted to, do my weekly call. How are things going? He's like, actually, they had to back out. I'm like, really? Well, tell me more. And he started digging into it. And I said, he's like, are you guys still interested, actually? I said, we are, but, we're probably closer to 60 or 65. He said, all right, well, let me think on it, and I'll call you back tomorrow. So he called me back the next day, and he said, all right, is there any way you can do 70? I'm like, let me see. So I called Josh. I said, hey, man, he's at 70. He's not budging. This is our second chance. What do you think? He's like, all right, if he can get to 65, with you, we can buy it for 70. And I'm like, done. So I called him back maybe 10 minutes later. I said, Roscoe, if you can do 65, we can sign tonight. And he thought about it, and I did the takeaway, the pause. I've learned from bigger podcasts. I just didn't say anything for like a minute, which was super awkward. And he's like, okay, 65, close in 2 weeks. Are you sure you can do it? And I said, yes, Joshua's out there is going to do it. So he said, yeah. So I literally hopped in my car. It was like 6 o'clock, and I called my wife. I'm like, I'm going to be late. I've got my first deal. She's like, yes. Yeah. So met him out there, got it signed, closed 2 weeks later.
So
actually,
go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was going to say, when you go out there, so you have the address and you got an appointment to go meet the guy at the property. I'm sure you kind of do some due diligence first, right? And you look at the property online, you kind of check out what it's about, look around, so you can do, or so you can know like what the ARV is going to be, so you would know what to sell it at, right?
Yeah. So the software I was actually going to talk about later, I can bring it up now because it's a great resource, even if you're not a realtor. It's called Popstream, PROPSTREAM. It's $97 a month, and you can actually look up properties that are on MLS and off. You can pull different lists and stuff through that as well to skip, trace, and call. But I just hopped on the MLS, hopped on Zillow, looked up some comps in the area. It was a 2-1 originally, but Josh said I could turn it into a 3-1, and I think we could get maybe 150 ARV. So that's completely fixed up, ready to go on the market, 150. And so he's like, I've got to be all in at 70. I'm putting 30 or 40,000 into it in order to make my profits. So for us, a good rule of thumb is keep it simple. If the property completely fixed up is going to sell for 100,000, and you need to be about 70% of that just to start off. And the reason for 70% is that's the profit in between. So they're going to make, $30,000 profit, maybe a little bit less after holding costs and everything else. But you need to be there at a minimum, and then you figure out what the property needs. Does it need a new roof? Does it need a new HVAC? Do the bathrooms need to be renovated? Does the kitchen need to be renovated? And I know that's kind of going broad, but what we did is we actually asked, like Josh, hey, if you're putting a new roof on this house, what does that cost you?
Is Josh a contractor?
He is, yeah. So they're flippers, and I'll actually go into them more because we've done more deals with them since. So they flip the houses. So he said, typically we buy a roof for $4,000 or $5,000. Typical rehab on a kitchen's $10,000. New HVAC $5,000 or $6,000. So we have a spreadsheet built out with all of that in there that I can send you if you want, that has everything broken out and what it costs typically. So when I'm going through a house, I'm like, ooh, this thing needs a new roof. Okay, that's going to be $5,000. I don't have to go back and think about it. It's all right there. And I'm actually talking with them, the sellers, as I'm going through the house. And I'm like, we're probably going to have to put a new roof on. Do you see that? Yeah. Okay. Well, this is what it costs. So they don't think that we're just trying to take advantage and buy the house super cheap. I'm like, no, these are actual real costs that I can have the investor I know is going to buy it back me up on.
Yeah. Okay. So you go up there, you kind of do your due diligence, like what the ARV price would be. So you go there, and in your head, the offer price you're going to make is, like in this instance, 70% of ARV minus repair costs. So if it's a $100,000 house, you start at 70, and then there's $25,000 in work. Now you're down to 45,000 would be an example.
Yeah. And once you get there, then you've got to take it a step further, and you've got to make some money too. So we'll say completely fixed up 100,000. My investor needs to be 70% before he even does anything. So we're at 70. Say he needs 20,000 in rehab. We're at 50. We'd like to make 10. So at a minimum, we can't be more than 40. And so typically I try to start a little lower just to give us some cushion. So I might start at 30, which if you've never done this before, or you just know the retail market, coming in, buying a house for 30,000 and it's going to be worth 100 after it's fixed up just sounds crazy.
Right.
And that's why you have to really work the leads hard and really go after the properties that are distressed, because those are the ones that typically the sellers are in a position where they have to sell it for less.
Okay, so cool. So this property, you already knew of an investor that you could sell the property to up in this area. You already knew Josh, but how would somebody go about finding buyers of these properties if they didn't already know somebody, right? Like, let's say somebody wanted to go start wholesaling and they get a deal under contract. Okay, great. Now what do I do? How do I sell this property to somebody?
Great question, because I actually had the exact same thing. I'm like, well, I know Josh can't buy all of our properties. What do we need to do? So if I was just starting out again, who do I need to talk to that buys properties? I'd go on Facebook first. There's always realtor investor Facebook groups on Facebook. So you might type in Greenville, South Carolina real estate investors, and there's going to be 2 or 3 that pop up. Or if you're in San Diego, California, go on there and type in San Diego real estate investors. Hop in there, let them know you're new. They usually have a list of email addresses in there already. just because they're looking for property. So I would just go into Facebook, look for that group, type an email address, and just start copy and pasting. Craigslist, surprisingly, is actually a good one as well. There's a lot of investors that go in there and try to go direct to seller for someone selling a distressed property there, but it's also a great way to find other investors. Real estate meetups, local real estate meetups that are official. So like for us, it's called UCREA, the upstate area for real estate meetups. It's a great place to meet veteran real estate investors, brand new investors, and you get to meet all kinds. You get guys who are flipping, who buy rental properties, who have mobile home parks, who do storage unit investing. I mean, it's, you name it, they do it. Yeah. And they're usually, most of them I've seen are pretty good at, if you're serious about it and you bring a lot of value up front, that they'll be willing to work with you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just a recurring theme on this podcast, along with all the other podcasts. Is just networking is so critical in this whole thing. So if you're going to start a wholesaling business, first you need to go out, not necessarily first, but a way you're going to start finding buyers. You said it's Facebook, Craigslist, go to real estate meetups. Just call. You could call agents. You could just get on Bigger Pockets and ask for investors in the area or search them or whatever. But you really have to just go out and start trying to network with people as much as possible. Yeah.
And I another good one I just thought about, YouTube. Guys like Max Maxwell, Chris Rude, Sean Terry. There's a bunch of them out there. But I think for just starting out, the best of the best is probably Max Maxwell. He's out of North Carolina. Does a phenomenal job of breaking down step-by-step how to get into the business, and is always providing tons of value and content for free. And he also has a Facebook group as well. It's like Wholesalers Elite, I believe. That's another great way if you've got time to just, YouTube University.
Yeah. That's to like kind of get in and learn the steps and the processes to get into.
Yeah. And it's free. And that's the biggest key. I know for me and for a lot of other investors just starting is, how do I get in with as little money as possible?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a great way to get started.
Okay, so you we'll recap again. So you got the list of people, you started calling, you met a guy that had a property that he wanted to sell. You knew of an investor in the area, you went up there, you looked at the property, you told him an offer, he didn't agree. He went with somebody else. You got back in contact with them, the deal fell through. He decided to say, okay, fine, I'll give it to you for $65,000. And you knew, hey, Josh was going to pay me $70,000 for it. So you had a $5,000 spread. So then what do? You sign a contract with this guy, with the seller. Mm-hmm. And then you line up with Josh. You have a contract with Josh saying you're going to sell at a different price, and you schedule the closings for the same day.
Yep. Yeah. So we just did an assignment of contract. And there's a few different ways to get that property closed, but we did a direct contract with the seller that, our team, Bluefield Acquisitions LLC, would purchase. But in the contract, the language said, we have the right to market it or to assign it to someone else. And they knew plainly, like, this is exactly what we're doing. They're going to be purchasing the property from us. And then as soon as we got that contract, we sent it to the local attorney that they used. And then we did what's called an assignable contract, which basically, as simple as I can explain it, there's of course more language in there, but it just says, we're assigning you this original contract. So contract A, contract B is between us. And in order for you to acquire this contract, we get $5,000. And all of that's clearly spelled out in there. And the attorney we use works with a ton of investors already, so they knew how this worked. So that's another thing I would recommend is, talk to other investors. If you just started, hey, who do you guys recommend that you guys work with to close? Because not all attorneys do the wholesaling contracts. So make sure you work with one who does and knows how it works. Mm-hmm. Makes things a whole lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you vet Josh? Like, how did you know that he had the money, or how did he fund it? Did he pay cash for it? Did he get a loan? Or like, how do you know that he's going to come to the table and actually close the deal? Yeah,
just the Facebook groups we met up previously. And I'd seen online they do a great job of showing the deals they're working on, and just talking to other investors. Hey, do y'all know, Josh and Brandy who flipped out investments? And I feel like they're those investors that everybody loves. Like they're the greatest people to work with. They're actually getting married next Saturday. My wife and I are going to it, but they've been engaged for a while. But she's an agent and he's the investor. So he flips the property and then she lists it. So I've gotten to know them really, really well over the last several months, to the point where we've done several deals together. They've bought several properties that I've gotten under contract, and then they've gotten to a point in their business where they get to pick and choose which properties they want to flip, and the leads they get sent that either they just don't want, or it's not enough of a spread, or it's not an area they want to be in. They call me and say, hey, let's do a joint venture and co-wholesale it.
Right.
And we've done several of those as well. So that's been a really neat partnership with them, past real estate and business. Like we're going to their wedding next weekend.
Yeah. So you didn't really know. So on the first deal, you just knew that they would close just by their reputation,
mm-hmm.
and that they'd done a bunch of other deals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
No, that's good. Okay. So you close on that first deal. That was maybe a month or two after you guys first decided to start the business. Where are you guys at now? How many deals have you done? What's the business look like today?
Yeah, so I just checked this morning. We just closed another one yesterday. So that puts us at 9 wholesale deals since April. A few listings have come from the wholesale list that we've been calling on. Some are under contract, a few we've closed. But yeah, so far we're at 9 official wholesale deals. And they've come from a mix of absentee owners. One was a driving for dollars lead that we did. I think the last 2 or 3 that we've done came from Josh and his fiance, just ones that weren't a fit for them. And then we've gotten one from our retail business that one of our inside sales agents was talking to her a little over a month ago and said, okay, I think you might be a great fit for Charlie and his division. And so we just closed that yesterday, which was actually a really, really cool story. So
cool. Okay. So do you guys ever, do you only wholesale them so far, or do you wholesale them? And wholesaling is just like where you buy the property and then you turn around and just put it on the market. Do you do any?
Yeah, not yet. We've actually, through this process, we've gotten to meet a few people who have, thrown out the opportunity to be private lenders. So where we actually use their money to purchase the property, and then we could either flip it, we could wholesale it. So say we buy it for $50,000, and then it doesn't need any work at all, or maybe a little bit, and just throw right up to the MLS for maybe 70 or 80. We haven't done that yet, but it's on the books for us to do, hopefully here in the near future. We're trying not to focus on it too much, just because we're trying to get really, really good at wholesaling. But my partner and I have agreed, if a deal comes across that's just too good to turn down, then we'll probably do the private lending and get that set up and take it down and then flip it to the MLS. But eventually that is our goal, is to start doing more of those deals, because you just make a bigger spread.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm sure you could check with local banks too. There's a lot of local banks. If you already have, if you and your partner, you set up an LLC to have the business, but you can secure it with you guys' own assets.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of local banks, portfolio lenders want to, add real estate to their balance sheet. And, a lot of times if you can show them that these are the deals we're doing, look at this is
Mm-hmm.
a spread that we're getting, we're buying all this stuff at 65% of ARV, they'll be happy to loan you most of the times 100% financing, and then you can even cash out refi, right? And then keep the property as a rental down the road.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've learned getting on this side of the real estate business, is there's so many ways to financially put deals together. Hard money lending is another one. And with Josh and his fiance, that's actually how they got started. I've talked about them a lot. Actually, you need to get them on the show. They've had a really cool story. I can talk to you afterwards.
I'd love to have them.
Just how they've gotten. Yeah, they're up to like $2 million in private lending now that they have access and they just started flipping like a year and a half ago. It's insane.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, they started with hard money lending, and then as they slowly grew their business, they got access to private lenders and said, "Hey, here's a breakdown of our last few deals we've done," and have utilized that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to put deals together financially. I'm sure we can all attest Bigger Pockets is a phenomenal resource for learning how to financially put deals together.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so how are you guys now? Are you guys still doing marketing the same way? You're just cold calling, or is there any other things that you're doing at this time?
We are. So I know we talked a little bit about it before the show. So just in the last few weeks, my partner and I, broker in charge, sat down and looked at the business, what we've done, and said, long term, what does this look like? And we see a huge opportunity with Popstream, that resource I mentioned earlier, because there's a way to pull high equity lists. So property owners that actually own the home and live in it, and also absentee owners for people who don't own it but rent it out, to pull high equity out of it. So these people you can specifically search. So say Greenville County, where we live, single family owner, they've owned the property at least 3 years and have at least 50% equity. You can pull thousands and thousands and thousands of potential leads. And we call them all. Well, me right now, but we're actually in the process of converting one of our inside sales agents to start calling, just because we've seen how much potential there is. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be calling every seller and keep it very simple. Hey, this is Charlie Harrison, Bluefield Realty Group. I'm a local realtor in the area. It's calling about 123 Main Street. Didn't know if you had any plans to sell in the near future, and just see where it goes. And what's unique about that for us, and again, not everyone is in this situation, but again, if you have a chance to connect with an agent, you can. We give them 3 solutions. We can list your home. If you need the most amount of money and you've got the time, we can bring you a cash offer, and I explain how that process works. And then we're also in the process of developing a property management division, so we can rent your property. So we provide those 3 solutions with every person we're talking to. And if it sounds like there's motivation or they're open to it, either me or someone else on our team will go sit down with them and dig into that a little more in detail and actually do what's best for the seller, and figure out, okay, of all these 3 options, which one makes the most sense for you? And let's go down that direction. And sellers love it. I've been talking to a bunch of them recently since we've implemented that. And the consensus is, wow, we didn't realize that a local realtor brokerage actually has more than one option. And it helps us stand out. We can provide more value for those sellers and long-term build more business from it. So if we do a really great job for those people, they're most likely going to refer us to their friends and family and coworkers and say, hey guys, if y'all need to sell your home, call Charlie at the Bluefield brokerage, because they've got some great solutions for you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I always think about, I'm starting investment company with my partner, but he already has a big real estate team. And I've always thought it'd be so cool to, say we can, just like you said, sell it on the open market as a regular listing, and we can pay cash for it. We have a property management company, or even if you need to remodel your home, I'd like to have a construction company. And, oh, by the way, we have a in-house insurance and in-house mortgage and all it. I think big teams these days, they're kind of going that way to where they're going to have so much as a one-stop shop in one area, that anything people want to do, you could just cover it all. And man, that'd be awesome. Money maker for sure, huh?
Yeah. And for us, the funny thing is, it didn't start out that way. We didn't start this wholesaling business to be able to provide all these avenues. It was, hey, I see a need in the market. Let's see if we can do some wholesaling. But as we've gotten into it and we've done more deals, we've started, changing not our script, but just how we approach it. So it really is, hey, Mr. Seller, if you are wanting to sell your home, we truly want to do what's best for you and provide the best solution. Let's sit down and talk. Let's go over all these options and see what's best for you. So at the end of the day, if you do what's best for the seller, long term, everybody's going to win. And like you said, I think long term, we may try to get an in-house mortgage company, and like you said, kind of go those different avenues, because that's how my broker thinks is, let's bring all these businesses in-house, because you really can better serve your clients when you have a ton of options for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And kind of off subject real
Yeah.
quick, but a question that I've always had, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. So what happens if you find a seller, they want to sell, you get under contract, and then you can't find a buyer for it? You just back out of the deal at the last minute, or what happens then?
That is a great question. So I mentioned that that Pickens deal that we did with Josh was our first deal. So we actually had 4 properties in another part of our area under contract at one time. It was going through the property manager, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I misran the numbers because they were supposed to be rental properties, and we were going to make like $20,000 a property. This is going to be great. I completely botched that whole thing. We didn't have anybody come, and I had to go back to that property manager and say, "Hey, I've got egg on my face. We couldn't bring anybody to the table. We can't close this deal." Luckily, the sellers didn't have to sell. They just wanted to if they got the right price, which in hindsight should have been red flag number 1, that this is probably not going to work out. But I was naive and eager to put a deal together. So I kind of missed that, but it wasn't fun. I learned the hard way that you've got to know your numbers and know who's going to buy this and do what's best for the seller. But at the time, I didn't know. So that was a very tough deal. But again, in hindsight, I'm glad we went through it because it taught us a ton.
So it didn't work out because you're saying it should have been a red flag that the sellers didn't really want to sell. That should have been a red flag, or
the price. So what they wanted, they didn't want to sell unless they had to. So typically, I've learned the hard way that if they do want to sell, but it's for the right price, it's going to be too high for most buyers. So we thought we got these at a great discount, and in reality, they weren't, because we sent it out to every single buyer I could possibly find, and no one thought it was a deal.
So you just didn't kind of understand the ARV. You didn't do your numbers correctly, is what you're saying. Yeah,
I greatly underestimated because these were all buy and hold properties for rentals. So I underestimated what a renter or a investor would pay for a rental, like what kind of returns they wanted. We just assumed based on the 1% rule, but I guess in our area, people want more than that, which I understand now a lot more.
Right.
So it was just a lot of underestimating what I thought we could do and overestimating what people would pay, and just it was a mess. I had to call the property manager after all of this and just apologize and say, "Look, man, this is what's going on. I dropped the ball. I screwed this up." So it is what it is. I mean, like I said, in hindsight, I'm glad I did it because I took action. I learned through the mistakes, and it's helped us put more deals together. And if anything, it's helped us say no to trying to do some deals because the numbers weren't right. So, we don't want to be those. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, that's good. Exactly. I mean, at least you did it. You took the action. You made the mistake, but you learned from it. You were humble about it when you called the property manager, and the owners knew that, listen, I wasn't just trying to, pull the wool over your eyes. I really thought it was right, but I just made some mistakes, So, I mean, that's good. That's a good lesson, and you learned it early on so it doesn't continue on, because I'm sure if you keep doing that, it would kind of scar your name a little bit and, have a bad reputation, which is not what you want, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was just going to say is, we want to be known as the investors that bring good deals. And, when you're an investor and you're on our cash buyer list and you see an email come from us, we want you to know, hey, let's look at this. This is going to be a good deal. Mm-hmm. And even that, we're still always learning what investors are willing to pay. And with the market changing some, with ARVs being over 200,000 is slowing down, a lot of investors I've asked are not wanting to purchase properties that after completely fixed up would be over 200. So we've actually a lot of houses recently we've had to say no to just because we knew the numbers wouldn't make sense.
Right.
So yeah, it's all part of the learning process. I wish I could come here and say, yeah, we've been killing it from day one, but that is not the case.
No, I don't think anybody would. So right on. Well, this is in no means supposed to be like a fully in-depth, like, hey, this is how we're going to do wholesaling, but hopefully this is kind of giving an insight to, some of the steps and everything. Is there anything else before we move to our last set of questions that you kind of want to mention?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing if you're just wanting to start out is just be prepared to learn before you earn. It's something I've always learned. So going on YouTube, going on Facebook, looking up people who are investing, going to these meetups and asking questions. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm brand new at this, because as a real estate agent, I haven't always done 20, 30 deals a year. I had to start with my first one. And kind of similar to investing, I completely failed my way to that first check. And I'm always learning. We've got a deal recently, as of 2 days ago, it's supposed to close today, that we had to get a survey for it, and it came back that there was an easement. And we knew there was, but the property owner behind there, it's 20 feet over, so he's not landlocked behind the property. Well, 20 feet over for the easement actually goes through part of the house. So title insurance isn't going to cover it. So we're having to go through this whole ordeal with the seller behind the property to release the easement, and there's going to be a bunch of addendums, and we got to get a new survey, and just it is not fun
right.
whatsoever. But, again, those are the things you learn the most from. So I know next time if there's an issue with the survey, I can quickly assess why that is and fix it sooner. So, yeah, even I know guys who are 10, 15, 20 years in, and they're still learning. So don't be afraid to say you're new, because you got to start somewhere. And even savvy investors who've been doing it for years know that.
Yeah, that's good. There's always more things to learn down the road. And I guess learn before you earn. Don't be afraid to maybe pay for some of these investing courses or different seminars and stuff too, because a lot of times, you do have to be careful. You don't want to go and get scammed and go to one of the ones that are always upselling you and do all this stuff. But at the same time, people say it all the time. You go to college for 4 years and spend 50, 60 or 100 grand to get a job that's going to pay you 30 grand or something, So,
yeah,
I'm learning that too. It's not always a bad thing to pay for some of these seminars, as long as you, again, do your research and find one that's actually going to be worthwhile. I just got back from one in Omaha, actually. And it was great.
Yeah.
Definitely worthwhile.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing there, again, it's just asking people like your Facebook group, investors, hey, I'm just starting out. I've actually got some money to invest. Who would y'all recommend that actually is doing it the right way to possibly get involved with? Like I said, Wholesaling Inc., hands down, one of the best coding programs out there. It's not cheap by any means, but you will get your money back and then some. I think Max Maxwell, who I mentioned earlier, also has some programs as well. But yeah, definitely do your research before just handing over thousands of dollars. Make sure that the guys who say they're doing 10, 20, 30 deals or whatever a month are actually doing it and are actually profitable. So yeah, you gotta be careful, because there's a lot of guys out there who do 1 or 2 deals and they're gurus, and now they're selling their own courses. Because I've seen a bunch of them come across, and I'm like, please, people, don't fall for this.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the one I just got back from, just because I really enjoyed it all, I'll do a little plug here. It's called Elite Real Estate Systems.
Mm-hmm.
They focus more on the building agent team, but they all have also done like 400 or 300 wholesale or wholesale deals in the last 2.5 years. So they started investing course too. So that was a great one as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we can both agree, Bigger Pockets, hands down. If you want to get started, they have tons of resources, forums. Brandon, David Green, those guys, they're always doing webinars for brand new investors. So if I had to say one thing at all from this podcast, it's Google Bigger Pockets and just get plugged in. You won't regret it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into our next section. So, what's your favorite resource? Is it podcast or the forums or books or seminars? How do you like to learn about real estate and moving forward in your real estate career
Yeah.
more than anything else?
That's a good question. I think it probably depends on what I'm trying to learn. If it's a specific thing, I'll probably go on Bigger Pockets and look it up. I'll look into a book if it's a right fit. Definitely podcasts, yours,
Yeah.
but also Steve Trang with Real Estate Disruptors is a good one. Wholesaling Inc., Max Maxwell's, any of the big guys who are doing it at a high level. Any of those, I listen to those constantly. Have you heard of Brian Buffini?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he's probably the number one guy I look to for anything real estate because he, came over from Ireland and started with nothing and built this multi-million-dollar business with hard work with his hands for many, many years. So anything that guy says to me is gold.
Yeah.
And he's more than just real estate. He's business, life, just the overall scope to keep you well-rounded.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely podcasts. Anything Bigger Pockets as far as forums, webinars are huge. Your Rich Dad, Poor Dad books.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I get from everybody kind of answers relatively the same way. It's like if you want to learn like a broad overview of a subject, podcasts are the way to go. If you want to dive deep on like one subject, like maybe books or the forums is another way to go. If you want to like network with people, go into seminars or meetups or something like that,
Yeah.
that's the way to go. So
Yeah, and
options out there.
Yeah, well, one of them I was just actually going to mention. I was just on the webinar maybe 2 hours ago. It's called Next Level Flipping. Ryan Robinson, RJ Bates, some of the big names in the industry lead this. So if you're doing between, I guess, 0 and 25 deals a year, it's only $100 a month to get access to this Facebook group, and they do 2 or 3 webinars a month on different stuff. Huge resource. I highly recommend if you're just getting into real estate investing, if you're flipping, wholesaling, renting, hands down worth every penny.
Cool. Okay, right on. So the next question is, what's a favorite app that you use on a regular basis that helps you in your business or even your personal life?
Yeah, probably, and this is going to be a silly one. It's called Hoopla. So it's actually our local libraries app. Because I'm a huge reader, I love to learn, and I don't like to spend money on brand new books because they usually sit on my shelf. But just go into your local library and sign up for their app. It's just like a Kindle app where we can borrow books from the library just like you could go there. Because I'm always learning different stuff. If someone recommends a book, I'll go in there and just start using it.
Cool.
But probably that, and either that or it's the same apps everyone has, like your notes and reminders. I'm huge on following up with everything, and I can only keep so much in my head at the time. So just getting everything out first thing in the morning. Panda Planner. It's not an app, but it's called the Panda Planner, Panda Planner. It's maybe $30, $40, but it has a monthly, quarterly, and a daily planner, and it's not just built in with the days. You actually get to write them in yourself. So if you miss a few days or you're out of town, you don't. It's not going to hurt you. But it's got a great section for what are you thankful for, what are you excited about, your to-do list, and then also at the end of the day, what did you learn? What could you have done differently? And that actually has been really big for my business because it keeps me organized, keeps me focused. Even if I'm sitting here complaining about this easement with the property and it's not closing for a week, I go back into my planner and it's like, I'm thankful for my 4-month-old daughter. I'm thankful just for another day. It kind of resets your mindset on things.
Cool. All right. Well, that kind of leads to the next thing, a mindset tip, something that you do, whether it's meditation or working out or eating right, something that can keep you focused and moving forward, because we all get in those kind of downer moods sometimes. What do you do to get yourself back going again?
Probably my morning routine. It's changed. So I think we mentioned I've got a 4-month-old daughter, and I haven't been able to really get up early and get worked out like I'd like to. That'll change once she gets a little older. But the one thing that hasn't changed is as soon as I wake up, my phone alarm goes off. I put my phone in the corner for about an hour. I don't even look at it. That way I can just focus on breakfast, my wife, my daughter, setting up stuff for the day. I'm not sitting here checking emails and text messages and Facebook and stuff. That one's been huge, to just not start the day being reactive. I used to wake up and check my email, and if something wrong from the day before carried into the next day, I'm in go mode. And before I know it, I'm just playing catch up all day and stressing about stuff instead of getting my mind right before I even look at that stuff. So I won't even check my email until I get into the office a few hours later.
No, that's perfect. And I'm in the middle of reading that Miracle Morning for Millionaires right now. And, that is, I've always had a morning routine, but that just re-emphasizes the importance of something like that. And, not being reactive first thing in the morning, but doing what you want to do to get your day going in the right direction.
Yeah. And it's so cliche or so simple to do, but it really does make a difference. I can attest to it. My days are better because I don't start out worrying or thinking about what's in my inbox or who I've got to follow up with. I know those things are going to come. I got to get myself right before any of that starts. So
cool. Right on. Well, where can people find out more about you? What's the brokerage called that you're at? Yep. And how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so our brokerage is called Bluefield Realty Group, BLUE Field Realty Group. You just go on Google and type that up. We're on there. I'm on there. Our listings and everything else. My broker's actually done a phenomenal job of getting that set up and making it user-friendly for everyone on there. Social media, Facebook and Instagram. If you just go on Facebook and type in Charlie Harrison, I should hopefully pop up. Instagram, I think it's Charlie Harrison Real Estate, I believe. It's probably a picture of me and my wife and daughter on both. So those are the two main ones I'm on, are Facebook and Instagram.
Right on. Cool. Well, Charlie, thanks a lot for being here. And again, I hope anybody that hears this wants to get going, this can kind of help them out a little bit. And if you guys want to go to South Carolina and start buying some property, call Charlie here and he'll get it worked out.
Yeah, and if you guys need anything, if any of your listeners have any specific questions, I'm an open book. Would love to help however I can. So,
right on. Well, thanks, Charlie. You have a good afternoon. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
See ya.